Hi everyone, we are here with Christine from IFRS Law. Welcome, Christine.
Hi, Lizette. How are you?
I'm very well, and you?
Good, thank you. Nice to see you.
It's a pleasure to see you as always. So, in our previous video, I talked about what an LLC is and what we need to know before we start an LLC. Now, Christine, could you tell us, so let's say I'm thinking about a name for my LLC. Is there some steps I should take before choosing a name for my LLC? Or can I choose any name? Does the name really matter?
Yeah. So let's first say what an LLC is. So that's a limited liability company, just for those who are new to that kind of lingo, you know. Sometimes I start to use language and then I forget, hey, wait a minute. Not everybody understands exactly what this term is, but it does mean limited liability company. And so it's a useful way of setting up your business because there's less requirements when you're registering it. But as to your question about names, so generally speaking, a trade name is what you would use for your business. And then when you're a sole proprietor, you just use, Christine Ferraris, law office, let's say. But if you want to set up your business and have a different type of name, and it would behoove you to make sure to check to make sure nobody else is using that. So you're not infringing upon any, what we would call intellectual property rights of another business owner. And you can do that like easily as doing a Google search and just put in the name now that we have, or whatever browser that you might use. And then each state usually has a name registration agency where you can go in and search the trade names of different businesses that are already registered. Now, not everybody registers their name with the trade name registry, but sometimes not sometimes, but it can provide additional protections of that name by it being registered in that state. So it's protected in that state. Now, if you're going to look to have broader protections, you would want to go to the federal agency, the U.S. Patent and Trademark website, and then you can do name searches there pretty easily. So those are a few suggestions I would that don't take that long and anybody can do.
Okay, so that clears that up. So the next question. Through my research, I came upon something called a registered agent. Why is it important to have a registered agent, and who can I choose to be a registered agent?
Okay, good question. So registered agents are, it's a person or a company that will accept documents. Should you, for example, if you get something formal from a state or federal agency and they want to send it to your registered agent who it would be an entity or a person that accepts documents for you. A lot of times when you register your company with the state, they will want to know who is the registered agent. Here in Arizona, it's important the registered agent doesn't just have a PO box, they have to have a physical address. For lawsuits, that's when a person who is pursuing a legal claim, they look to see who the registered agent is, and that's usually identified on the state registration website, and that's where informal notice of a lawsuit would be sent. And you want to keep that registered agent information up to date because the state requires that companies do that. Now you can serve as your own registered agent. A lot of smaller companies do, and that's okay. But sometimes it's nice to have anonymity, and there are professional companies out there for maybe a $200 a year sort of fee that will serve as your registered agent. And a lot of big companies that are registered in a lot of the states in the United States have corporation service, for example, is a well-known professional registered agent that a lot of like bigger companies will use to accept process. And once the documents are delivered to the registered agent, they're responsible for forwarding them to the company themselves. Is that helpful?
Yeah, of course. That was so helpful. I'm so happy you cleared that up for me and for clarifying what a registered agent is. You actually answered my question because I wanted to know, can I be my own registered agent? And then you actually answered. So that's perfect.
Okay.
So the last question.
Mm.
So I read that anyone starting an LLC will need an operating agreement.
Mm.
So my question was, who will draft our operating agreement and what should be included in our operating agreement?
Okay, well, that is, I don't think I can answer all of that question because it depends on, you know, who you are. If you're going to be more than one person under managing the company and more than one member, like as part of the company that would have interest in the company. And what we see, the operating agreement is really like the contract, the agreement of how the business is going to be run. Now, and when there is a transfer, an event happens, like say one of the owners of the business, something happens to that owner, and maybe that interest is going to transfer to their spouse or to their family, to their estate, the operating agreement should have provisions in there, you know, instructions on how that happens. One of the things I think is important for business owners when they're in business with one or two or three partners that aren't, you know, family, or even if they are family, to make sure, because what happens when an event like that I mentioned happens when a person is incapacitated and their interest, something needs to happen to their interest. Sometimes you end up being business partners with people that you don't want to be business partners with because that person interest is transferred to somebody else that maybe doesn't know anything about the business, maybe doesn't have any interest in the business. So you really want to think about those things. And usually someone like a CPA or a lawyer can help you draft an operating agreement for tax purposes and for just regular operations, and then in the event of types of situations. Now, not everybody puts an operating agreement together. And so when that doesn't happen, there are limited liability company statutes with each state that will dictate what might happen in the situation where there isn't an operating agreement. And that may not be something a business owner wants to happen. So they are important. And I'm going to suggest, as I do with other folks, is maybe having a conversation with a lawyer or an accountant or bookkeeper to get your business set up right, to avoid, you know, mistakes down the road.
Definitely will be looking into that one. And I think a lot of viewers will be looking into that as well. We do not want other people to have control of what we love.
Yes.
Operating agreement is a must. So thank you as always so much for your insight. I believe with each question answered, we feel a little more confident in forming an LLC. Are there any other helpful info with regards to a business, startup, or LLC you would like to add?
Yeah, no, I just, like I said, it's usually good to get some initial advice when you're thinking about setting up a business, even if you don't think, it's just because sometimes we don't know what we don't know. And so, you know, speaking with a bookkeeper, accountant, just to help you get set up and help you understand maybe potential obligations. If you have thoughts about how you want to grow, maybe you don't think you need that specific advice now, but, you know, it's a way to avoid mistakes and just to understand exactly what might be helpful to have in place now to allow you to grow responsibly in the future.
True, very true. So thank you, Christine, and you should have a fantastic day.
You do the same, Lizette. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, and everybody else, be sure to check out our next video where I will be talking about how to be a good employer. And there are 6 characteristics that you need to watch out for in a good employer. Thank you and have a wonderful day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. And remember, the information provided does not and is not intended to constitute legal advice. Instead, all information is for general informational purposes only. The information may not constitute the most up-to-date information. Links provided are only for the convenience of the reader. FRS Law LLC and its members do not endorse the contents of the third-party references. And also, please like, subscribe, and follow our channel for more.